picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
The universe is safe for you and me. But what of Lazarus? What of Lazarus?
Oh, hello and welcome back. It is a new week, it is a new ship, and my ship has come in. I was waiting for the mail today for it to arrive, because if not, I was going to have to back up and play with something else this week. But it has come in. It is of my favorite topic, which is classic Trek, and let's take you to the table. This discerning viewer is the Larson Models, Larson Company, Larson production of the Lazarus time ship from classic Trek, and I'm guessing by the fact that it uses a classic shuttle chair in it that this is in fact 1/32nd scale, so that's what I'm basing it on. No figure is included, but we have the time ship, or the universe slipping ship. This is the episode where the gentleman Lazarus keeps flipping back and forth between universes, and what of Lazarus, and what of Lazarus, or his counterpart, and he keeps swapping places. It's basic. I mean, it's very simple in construction. So simple, in fact, that there are no instructions. And I kind of quizzed Chris about that, because I'm familiar with what it looks like, but, you know, I could be going down the primrose path the wrong way if I just start building this without a decent set of a guide for how to do it. So this is a very excellently cast flat piece, and it's something you don't normally see in a resin kit. And this is just in very good shape. So cleaning up these parts is the first thing to do. And then we will start doing some basic construction. I don't know if I have the skill set to do this. I was thinking what I might like to do would be to actually build the missing section. And put the missing section in place, you know, right where the door goes here. And you can see on the bubble there's a missing, you know, there's this little spot in the bubble there. And it's a very, very simple construction, very simple cockpit. It's one of those set pieces that I always wondered what happened to it after the filming was done. But here you go. It looks something like this. I mean, it practically builds itself, but, you know, could still use a little help. Goes something like this. I think I've got all the pieces figured out, but as I said, I've always liked to have some confirmation. And then, of course, these go on the open sides, which makes me think there is a missing chunk of, well, obviously there's a door that comes off. I just will have to check the episode again to see how best to figure that out. Okay, here is, for reference sake, the kit that I am going to be working on. It is from Larson Designs. Now, this particular build-up was done by Jeff Bond, the always excellent Jeff Bond, and he's done the thing that I think I need to do as well. And I was looking at the kit, and you'll notice how the kit has a parallel opening here. It's a straight-on opening that goes instantly from the center to the outside, but the opening should be a wedge shape, not a straight-on shape. So I believe that I'm going to be doing what Jeff did on his, which is to extend the opening, keep the center the same, because you don't want to mess up that dome, but keep the center the same, and then arc the outsides out a little bit more. Now, you may well be asking me, why am I showing this picture of the from the Gamesters of Triskelion? And it's because in the fine tradition of Star Trek, we're using props like they do all the time. The dome on the top of this is the same dome as there is on the Lazarus ship, and that's why sometimes you'll see that starburst pattern on the top of the dome. Also, you'll see that that's also repeated on the dome of the Lazarus ship as well. Let me find you that picture. This is the shot that you're most familiar with. This is the Lazarus ship at Vasquez Rocks, of course, where they did a lot of their backlot filming. And you'll see that you've got your rocks here. You got a nice little bit of underbrush here. I think that's how I'm going to end up displaying mine. I'm going to maybe make some sort of little base that I can put some sand on, and then put some bushes and some shrubbery. Yes, I need a shrubbery to go around the bottom of that. And there you can see that same cutout right at the front of the dome that was used in the Gamester's dome. And let me see if I can find you that better picture. Okay, here's that better picture that I found. Again, you can see the framework is there for the cutout, but here's the dome. There's the starburst. So from all of that, you can ascertain or piece back together, do a little bit of detective work, that is the same dome that was on the top of the three throbbing brains in Triskelion. Okay, I've been having a good play with these parts for the Lazarus ship, and before I turn in for the evening, there's one thing I want to do. I'm going back, I'm looking at the reference, and I'm going back and forth, and it strikes me that when you do this, and you put it all together, that center section comes off to me looking a little thin. Looking a little too thin. So what I want to do is I want to beef it up by putting another piece of this Troubleshooting and epoxy it to it, because now when I look at those with two pieces between it, that strikes me as more accurate. That strikes me as closer to the full-size filming prop. So I'm going to I've got this traced out. Of course, I can cut all this off later, but I want to glue this down or epoxy this down. I've traced this off onto another piece of Troubleshooting just to keep as a backup in case something goes horribly wrong, which, you know, given my record, is a good 60-40 chance anyway. So I want to go ahead and epoxy this down and have it setting up overnight so that tomorrow I can put it on a bandsaw and trim it out and sand it up and get it looking quite right. This is my my reasoning for wanting to fatten up this line here. I think the model has it about that thick, and it needs to be about double the thickness on the kit. So that's the reason I'm fattening that up. Morning, it's Tuesday, and the work continues on the Lazarus multi-dimensional ship, and I'm going to be doing a little bit more scratch building on this than I originally thought I was going to, because I'm liking it so much. I just think every time I see a part, it's like, ooh, I think I could do that. It's not that there's anything wrong with the kit as it is. It's a beautiful kit. I'm just looking at places where maybe I want to improve things or make them slightly different. So last night I glued this piece of Troubleshooting down to the stock center, and I think once this is painted, hopefully that seam will go away, but I think that thickness is a lot closer in thickness to what I'm looking at. So now I'm turning my attention to the cockpit. Now the cockpit's going to have to be a little taller now, because I've added that weight I've added that additional thickness there. So I'm thinking it might be as simple as getting some 2-inch PVC pipe and cutting it down, and then putting a piece of ribbed styrene on the inside and some flat stock. I think all that would be easy enough to do. These are very simple shapes, very basic to do. So I think I want to try my hand at it. I want to take a shot at doing that. And then I've got the two parts of the body lined up, and I'm kind of mapping out how much wider I want that opening to be. Rather than being a straight opening, I want it to flare out a little bit. So, like I said, I've got these taped together, and I'm going to put them on the bandsaw and just slide it up to the saw and cut that angle, and hopefully that'll translate both top and bottom, and we'll go from there. But everything else is looking pretty good. You can see the area that needs to be cut out. I'm going to use a 2-inch hole saw and just cut a brand new hole right in the center here. It may be a little bit bigger than this, but it'll be a cleaner round hole directly in the center, and then I can make my once I get these pieces cut, then I can lay that down, and that'll help me map out where my where this needs to be, because I think it's going to go something like that by the time we're done. Okay, I'm back from lunch and a quick trip to the hardware store where I picked up a brand spanking new sharp 2-inch hole cutting bit, and I cut a hole that's 2 inches wide with a 2-inch hole cutting bit. That's how it goes. I even took this with me to use it as a gauge block. But now you go. Now everything else I need to do, I can do with a bandsaw. But that's a nice crisp clean hole there. Yeah, that's gonna do a treat. Okay, I've got the last 2 cuts made. That's going to be the opening of the new door, the new pie wedge coming out. And of course these will have to be split in half now and thickened, because this area here is thicker than it used to be. But by the time you take this and set this in it, sit that on top, you are good to go. I do need to make, actually I can use this little cutoff piece. I think I can make this work, because this is now too short. But if I sit it up on that, raise it up a little bit, then it becomes the right height again. Yep, that's all it takes. I'll just raise that up, and now it becomes the new height. We set the dome on top of it, and everything is back to where it started. Yay, Skippy. Okay, so I need to dress this up a little bit, clean up the edges of it. This is just the core that was cut out of the with the new bit. This is the core that was cut out of the plastic. So you never throw away a perfectly cut circle like this. And now you know why, because you can use it for filler. I'll give this a little bit of a how do you do with a sanding block. There you go. Doesn't matter if there's a hole in the bottom of it, it's never going to be seen. All it has to do is sit there and raise up this interior a bit, and then sit it on the floor. I just need to make sure that there's no big discernible gap there when you look straight at it, so it's going to sit something like that. Alrighty, I've got the bottom on now, marking out an equidistant margin around all the sides, and trying to make sure everything was nice and evened up. I found that if I took these clamps, which are all the same size, and I put them exactly in the same distance, then I could use them as a margin marker, so that I could slide the circular bottom up to it, sort of like that, and that'll work top and bottom since the margin has to be the same. But I just tacked it in place with a little bit of CA around the outside edge, and what I'd like to do now is reinforce that from the inside. Since I can be sloppy on the inside, I don't have to worry about the niceties of things. I can put some clear epoxy in there, and that'll strengthen up that joint. I'll sit it like this so that gravity will want it to run to the outside. And that will take care of that, and that'll put us well on the way to working on the other parts of it tomorrow. You know what else I could do while I've got it here? Is I could put this the back fin on, since it's going to sit like this for a long time. I can just go ahead and put that rear fin in and have it gluing or curing while I'm doing everything else. So we'll do that. I have a feeling that once I'm done with all of this, I'm going to need to take a file and make all of these walls, sort of make them all even, and then I can put these side panels in. But trying to get all those angles and everything synced up, it's going to be easier to put them all together and then run a sander across it and kind of sand them all flush at the same time. Yeah, it's actually gonna give me reinforcing, make it actually easier to sand that. Okay, so let me get some 5-minute epoxy. I still can't find the 1-minute epoxy in the Loctite epoxy in the syringe tube. It's making me nuts because I love that stuff, and this would be the perfect use for a syringe tube to, you know, get in this deep area. I just can't find it. It's not available anymore. It's making me crazy. Working into the evening, working a little bit later today than I normally do, but it's simple work, so it's going by pretty quickly. I've just glued the top down and the top fin in. I'm going to let this obviously set up till tomorrow before I start doing any puttying or anything like that. But what I'd like to do before I turn off the office lights for tonight is to do what I did on the bottom, and just lay in a bead of epoxy along this bottom here and that bottom ring, and then that can be curing overnight, and then we can fit the interior in tomorrow, or at least start painting, maybe get a coat of primer and some putty on this, and then I'll probably paint the interior up separately and slot it in after everything else is working. But I want to get this in, get it cured, and then maybe I will do a bit of the sanding to even off all of these doors. Yeah, I can see where there's some stuff that needs to be. I tried to get one as good as I could just out the gate, so we know that that's working, and then we'll make the rest of them kind of fit to it. So let me throw out some epoxy and then slide it in place. Well, good morning, it's Wednesday and work continues on Lazarus's interdimensional ship, and we're digging out the reference today. And of all of the various copies of the Trek episodes I have, this is from the remastered DVD. It is not the enhanced version. It is as clean and pure as you can get to the actual version. It is not any of the myriad of VHS or beta tapes that I have, or CED discs that I have, or it's certainly not the Blu-ray, because my computer won't play the Blu-ray. But it is a regular DVD. And I have to apologize, I've misspoken. You know, I've seen these episodes so many times that I sometimes forget which ones came before other ones. Alternative Factor is actually episode 20, which places it towards the end of the first season. And so this dome was actually used here before it was used in Gamesters of Triskelion. But here you can see what I'm trying to get at. That starburst pattern is on the top of the dome, and then here you can see, I'll get the pointer out because you can't see the pointer. Here is the cutout for the occupant, but here is the you can see the underside, you can see that star pattern. And here is the little add-on that goes on the top fin towards the back, and it looks like there's an additional side piece that I'm going to have to scratch build to add that little bit of detail. I'm not going to turn the tape back or the DVD back on, because that's when I get signaled for copyright violation. So let me find a better reference, or another reference. Okay, here's the shipping in from the other side, and yes, that little fin thing goes down on both sides. So that's a piece that needs to be scratch built. And again, we're looking at the back of the ship, so the cutout is at the front here. And it doesn't seem to be, at least at this point, I can't tell. I'll maybe check it on the Blu-ray, see if the resolution's any better. But this seems to be a simple cutout, whereas then later in the episode, there's actually a silver trim there. So we're going to have to see how that shakes out. Okay, what that grating actually is, looks like to be a chrome-colored door that you pull off to get to this access where he puts the crystal in. So I need to figure out the best way to whether or not I'm going to make that door chrome. That might be a fun detail there. It looks like there is a definite change between this and this. This is set farther back, so I can make a single panel that covers all of that, and I don't have to worry about making it the same plane as that. which is interesting. These lights here are a little bit larger than what appears in the model, so I think we're going to make those a little bigger. All this stuff, for such a simple thing, there's a surprising amount of detail. It looks like the pedestal that the chair sits up on is squared or has angles to it. It is not a the model has a what looks like just like a checker, a round pedestal that the stand for the chair sits on, whereas this looks like the stand for the chair is much shorter, but it sits on a raised pedestal that has angles to it. Here's a picture after he's put the crystal in place. Okay, Kirk has mistakenly gone through the portal, and you're seeing the alternate universe of the same ship. You are seeing the what looks to be a chrome frame around the opening of the window, and you're seeing the dome or the bubble off to the side, and clearly marked with that, I know I keep harping on it, I'm sorry, but marked with that star shape. Boy howdy, this is an excellent reference here. You see it's clearly a shuttle chair with a much smaller framework on it and a raised pedestal here. Inset screens on this side plus matching green lights here, and again this is raised in front of or above, sticks out from this bar that goes around the front. But yeah, there is a definite framework there for the bubble opening. We're back. I've got the first coat of primer on the outer shell, and it's doing all the things that a proper coat of primer should be doing, which is to show off all of the seams and bubbles and imperfections that need to be addressed, and that it has. I took my weapon of choice for sealing up the gaps and seams, which is tulip. Now in this case I am using white tulip since I'm not worried about blocking any light, plus the ultimate goal of this thing will be to be painted white, so go ahead and put the white tulip on it. And I just a small bead in this seam here, and then wiped it down while it was still wet with a cotton swab. I won't use the brand name, but a cotton swab there to fill in that any irregularities there. And what this is also showing me is the laminations between the two pieces of different types of plastic that I used on the main body, and it's showing me where some sanding work still needs to happen. I don't think that's going to be a problem much past the next primer coat as far as, you know, continuing to show, but it was showing a bit of the seam work. So we'll do some sanding on that and then hit it with another coat. I've got this detail added now. Having seen the video, I know now that there are two triangle shapes that go something like that on either side, and I can just cut those out of a very thin sheet stock and glue those on top. It also helps cover up that seam, but it gives the added detail that's supposed to be there. And then we'll put this all aside, and I'll go back to working on the interior now that I've got a better grasp of what that should look like as well. The chair and the height of the chair and the pedestal for the chair and all of that. Okay, I'm taking a break in between working on bouts of body work on the pod here to work on the interior as well. And I have resculpted the seat a little bit. You'll notice it looks more like a shuttle chair now than the, because this was basically the old shuttlecraft model chair That's what this was modeled after, and that was never very accurate. And even the chair that I printed up for the for the new round 2 shuttle isn't quite right for this. So I did some sanding and resculpting, and I also resculpted the base of the chair because again, the way the kit comes, this is basically 2 parallel lines when it should be a V shape. It should come down to a much more narrower shape. So basically just hacked off the 2 sides and got the took the time to shorten it up a little bit. I still need to build a little box because it sits up on a box and then sits in that tube to complete the interior. But yeah, little by little it's getting there. Okay, so I'm working on the interior cabin a little bit, and I am trying to find what would be a good piece of photo etch for this console. There's a console that's right about here. If you are looking at the inside of the ship, well, if you're looking out of the ship, there's a console that you can see Lazarus fiddling with here. It's not all that big a deal, but it's something I want to put on here. So I'm looking through this stash of what Paul gave me a long time ago. It's basically failed pieces of photo etch that really were not good enough to sell for what they were intended because it's either overexposed or pieces dropped off the fret. Anyway, it doesn't work for what it was intended, but it's beautiful for doing some kit bashing and scratch building purposes. And there's some generic, fairly generic looking panels right in here that I can use for that purpose. So I'm going to cut one of these off. There's also some nice round look like speaker grills. They would have been speaker grills on the Jupiter too, and I think I'm going to use those in the area. I'm making new plates for the inside of the door, inside of the openings, and right there I think that would make a great little bit of surface detail. I'm actually acquiring quite a stash of kit parts that I'm going to end up not using. I'm not using the tub. I'm not using the sidewalls. I'm making my own stuff, and then to that I also added thickness to the main piece. So yeah, there's a lot of the original kit I'm not using, but that's my choice. It's my model, and I'll cry if I want to. So I need to cut these off of the fret and do some paint work on it and glue it in place. Now I'm not going to try to do anything as far as the buttons or the knobs or lighting anything. Obviously that would be a road I don't want to go down. I don't want to start being tempted to light anything on this. Okay, I'm getting ready to close down for today because I think I've beaten this horse enough for one day. It's a weird paradox because the simpler the shapes and the more rudimentary the design, it becomes more obvious when you've got a ding or a scratch or a nick or something in it. If it's a complicated, real, greebly design, you can get away with hiding a mistake or a thumbprint here or there. But something like this, every little goof is going to show up. So you have to be on your best behavior as far as, see, I'm starting to work on that interior. Your best behavior as far as making sure that your glue lines are clean, that your seams aren't showing, that anything that is showing has been cleaned up. Here we go. We can kind of see how this is going to look with the bubble on top and all of that. So it's coming together, but it is it is tasking me so far as making sure that every little bit is cleaned up and is nice and smooth. I've gone over this edge again with the sander, and I need to hit it one more time with the primer. The nice thing about as the simple design that this is that you don't have to worry about well, it's still a concern, but you don't have to worry about covering over too much of your detail with a filler primer like that you would in a design that has a lot more surface detail, because sometimes filler primer can fill in that surface detail and it's not the look you want. But on something like this, you can use a really fine sandpaper, and I'm talking in the 1500 to 2000 grit range, and really just buff this thing to a mirror finish, or you know, a real smooth finish. And then by the time you put that final white coat on top of it, it's going to be in really good shape. But I think my voice is starting to go today, so it's time to do one last round of sanding and then hit this with a primer and let it sit for the rest of the night. And welcome everybody. It is Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend, and continuing work on some details for the Lazarus ship, and I'm hoping to get a coat of white on it today. That would be nice, but I need to make sure I'm done with all the manhandling before I start putting the white coats on it. Working on the interior this morning. I've got the sidewalls done up, I think, in a way that's going to work, and then what will happen is I will glue these sidewalls in and then sand and trim and file to get this edge perfectly flush. So that's job one. This is the other sides, and that'll go there. Working on the pedestal this morning. Now it's important that just the tippy top of the chair breaks the top level of the well, see, here's the top rim. Here's the top rim of the, let me sit down, it's been a long morning already. Here's the top of the rim of the interior. As you can see, I'm starting to get all that painted in there. And the chair, when it's done, has to come up just above this black edge. So to do that, I needed to create a block that was a 3/4 inch block, a cube 3/4 of an inch, and then when you sit the chair and the pedestal on top of it, it will come up to the correct height. Now, this block might be a little plus or minus of what the actual set piece was, because I also, when I did the surgery on the stand yesterday, on the bracket that holds the chair in place, it came up a little. I wanted to make it a little shorter than what the kit provided part was, so maybe this block is a little taller than it needs to be. But if you look at the screen cap, it's pretty consistent with what they actually did on the set piece. Now, the set piece has its, I mean, it functions as it needs to, because you basically only need it for the scene where Lazarus is fiddling with the compartment on the doorway to put the lithium crystal in. And it has to work so that when Kirk is leaning into it, he's at the right height and everything's in camera range and all of that. I don't really think they put a lot of serious thought into whether or not, by the time you put the dome in place and the chair in place and all of that, whether the pilot would actually be able to reach a lot of the controls. I don't, because this gap piece is missing here, and they never really show what happened to it. Is it something that happens like maybe shuttlecraft doors where let me pull this back so it's in camera, where it doesn't happen like shuttlecraft doors where both parts of this missing piece kind of come out from the middle and join in the center? Is it a piece that was just picked up and unlatched and put off to the side? We don't know how that missing piece functions. Is it some sort of alien tech that would, it holographically, disappears? Who knows? Maybe it's nanotech. That's the solution these days for everything, is nanotech. Maybe it's programmable matter. But still, we don't know what is supposed to go in here, really. The one conjecture that I saw was on an illustration of a poster of a looked like a cartoonish poster that showed it as just filled in, but didn't really show how Lazarus was able to use any of the controls that would be in this front section. So it's a great mystery, and it really, in the long scheme of things, doesn't matter, because the prop serves it, or the set piece. I'm trying to remember my nomenclature. It's a prop if you hold it. It's a set piece if you walk inside it or walk around it. So it's a set piece. So the set piece serves its function, and that's all you really can require of it story-wise. So thinking about it much beyond that is, anybody's guess is as good as mine. So what I need to do now is, I've got this block the right height. When I sit it in here, the chair becomes the right height. So I just need to glue the two together and get a coat of paint on it. Okay, while other things are drying, it's time to start turning attention to the base. I'm just making a simple little plaque base. I don't have room to do big dioramas anymore. I sometimes get carried away with the size of my bases, and that's something I need to curb. So just a simple little plaque, and it's going to sit something like that on there at an angle, and I'll build it up with moss and lichens and things like that. So took the saw out and took this out on the deck, and got the saw while the weather was going to cooperate. It's been off and on lately, so I got to strike while the iron is dry, and start working on that. Alrighty, I think I'm to the point where I am ready to put these sidewalls in, and then once the sidewalls are in and sanded down and filed into place and all of that, that will be the last bit of lugging and tugging I'm doing on this, and therefore I can go ahead and start putting top coats of paint on it. But you can see, hopefully by that right here, how much of an overlap that would be. That's not bad. That's not a bad place to be. It's just something that will have to be trimmed down. I wonder, what, that bottom looks pretty good, and it's trimmed already. If I trim a little bit more off of that top, that would save me some scribing. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm just going to take a little bit off of this curve right here, so that when I glue it in place, it doesn't stick up too much from the edge of the hull. Okay, I'm getting ready to put this sidewall in, but before I do, I wanted to point out a couple of the features. Yes, it's got a recess in here, so if I want to put a dilithium crystal pack in there, I can. And I could even cover it over with a door that I have yet to put the black lines on, but it is, I gotta make sure I get it right side up. It only goes in the one way. There. Oh, I know what's happening. This is too thick now. No? That should still fit. Yeah, there you go. It still fits. But if you want to peel that off, you would see that there's a dilithium crystal in there. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side, but we're going to make this stationary. There's no reason to believe that that would need to come off, so we're going to leave that one, but it'll mirror the one on this side. And let's see, how ready are we to put this one in? Yeah, I can see it needs a little bit of shaving down first. Let me mark that out. A little bit of shaving. And ta-da! Both sidewalls are in. Things are coming together pretty quickly now. We're going to let this CA cure for a bit. I put a little bit of epoxy sculpt in there, so we're going to let that cure for a bit. But then the next step really is to get a coat of white on this, because the interior is all but done. Just got to pop that in here. I think what I'm going to do is put a coat of white on this, and while that's drying, I am going to start investigating the starburst that goes on the bubble. Get that maybe cut out of vinyl and stuck down. Yes, this looks like a bad seam now, but once this is all painted black, you will not notice it, as it is on the actual set piece. This is a applied panel that has a lip here, but since it's all painted flat black, it all disappears, and that's the goal for this. And then I'll do the highlighting. I've got these guys here to repaint with some white, and then I'll do maybe a gunmetal on that bit of detail, and then of course the other grate will go there. So this is a little bit further along than it might appear. Morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and it'll be probably, more than likely, fingers crossed, toes crossed, eyes crossed, all of those. It'll be the last work day on this Lazarus ship. Never really had a name. It was just Lazarus's ship. And I'm going to do the final bits of painting today. I am certainly glad I got the big spray painting done yesterday, because I was woken up to a rumble of thunder this morning. It has been raining and storming all morning, and which is no bueno when it comes to doing any sort of spray painting outside. So certainly glad to have gotten that done yesterday, what I got done. And today, all that remains is some touching of the white of the hull color, assembling the interior, and putting it on a base and adding some lichens and some greenery to the base, and we'll be done. So first things first, I want to go ahead and repaint these areas black now that I've got the white base color on. And then I will be masking that off and using what I've been trying to find a good excuse to use for a while now. Mission Models makes a Starship white pearl type of color, and I want to use that on this just to see what the finish will look like. Give it a little bit of a glow to it. It's got white primer on it, and that's all. But these areas here are simply flat black with a little bit of detail painting, and I've made masks to cover up the lights or the areas here that still need to stay white. And I've got my star the right size now. I just need to plot that in red. So I'll go ahead and take this off. Got red vinyl in the plotter right now so that I can recut that. And I've got the grills done for the side plates, these little doors that go up here. So that's also to be done. But first, let me get some flat black on these sides. I think I'm going to run a piece of tape around here just to keep that clean. Okay, we're ready to paint the black. I've got the interior all masked off, but I think before I do that, I want to do something showy and put the star, sunburst, the whatever you want to call it. Got this all plotted out. Just to yank it off of the backing here. Here we go. Got this symbol here ready to go on the top of the bubble. And the nice thing about having the front little semicircle cut out is it gives me a definite front to the shape there, so that I have something to line up against. And I am eyeballing the top there. I'm not going to think too much about it. I'm just going to put it down, and I've got others plotted in case I need to remove it and adjust it, but I don't want to get the X-Acto on it because it's going to scratch it. But I do want to be able to adjust. There you go. I've got the star on there. And we set that aside, and we get the black paint out, and we paint the interior now. Well, somebody's going to be shopping for a new airbrush at Wonderfest. I've just spent the last hour trying to clean out one, and then of course you get the little tiny nozzle part, and it wants to jump off of the table, and you're scouring on hands and knees, scouring your rug trying to find the part, only to realize that it is beyond my paltry skills as far as rehabilitating it. So breaking out the other brush that I use from time to time, which is at least I can get some air through it. It is the Neo TRN1, I'm sorry. Yeah, the TRN1. And I use this for larger scale stuff, but I'm going to have to use it for this now. So now we're caught back up to where I was about an hour ago. Okay, so I've just put on the first coat of the Pearl Starship White for Mission Models. And of course I started on the bottom, because if it's something I don't like or I screw up on it, it's hidden on the bottom. I mean, that's just painting 101. But I like how it's turning out. It's hitting a highlight in the lighting just the right way. And I'm going to let that dry, stop messing with it. And then I should be able to flip it over and do the top. Things are coming along pretty quickly at this point now. I've got the interior ready to go in. I've got the bubble ready to go on the top. Just have to do a couple of tiny detail paintings on these hatches, and those will be ready to go. Actually, I think I'm going to use vinyl on these hatches. That was a bit of a chore. I've got the grid lines or the vent lines on these tiny little doors, and they go on either side of the opening. And I think the fact that it took so long to do was kind of a blessing in disguise, because that means this paint should be good and dry, and I wasn't rushing to get to the top of it. Sometimes the universe just works out the way you want it to. If I had taken less time to do these, I might have rushed into that other paint before it was ready. So let me flip this over, and we'll be ready to paint the top. It's good and dry now. I gotta wash my hands again because I've been dealing with black paint and black vinyl, and I don't want to get any schmutz on here. Playing with the lichens on the base and throwing some greenery into the setting. And if you look at the photo that they always show, it's the one that's on the VHS show box, if you can recall that long ago. There are a bunch of plants just jammed underneath here, tumbleweeds and other big pieces of greenery, and I think it's just to hide the underside of the set piece, which might not even have been finished by that point. So that's what I'm kind of doing here. I'm just jamming some stuff up under here, and I'm making it look like it's resting on it, and it also gives it a little bit of color. The ship itself is not glued down yet, and I will before it's all said and done, but I'm just using it now to position the shrubberies. And I want to make a little path here on this path, but yes, I want you to bring me a shrubbery. And I'm using some of this wispy tall grass here just in the front, because that was a staple. It was basically the weedy type of stuff that was sticking straight up. I don't have the wherewithal to make it stick straight up here, but I can glue it down and mat it down. Give some hairiness to the proceedings. There you go. And once all of the Elmer's dries clear, that'll take care of a lot of that. And then we'll shake off all of the extraneous not sticking grass. I'm gonna put a little bit of this turf grass just over some areas of baldedness. Make a little bit of turf looking, or at least some sort of spotty grass. Not exactly a well-kept lawn, but just adding a little bit of greenery amongst the sagebrush. Splash a little bit of glue here. And for all of the scenic cement and everything else that you can, spend a lifetime and a family fortune on, I find that good old Elmer's school glue works just as good as any of the fancier stuff. Now, I'm not doing anything near on the scale of a model railroad here, so I'm not interested in, you know, covering up acreage, but it's doing a fine job for what it needs to. So I think that I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to overshadow the ship, but it also helps that starkness of the white ship sitting in front of all of that. Okay, we're going to let that dry and start assembling the final bits here. The interior and the dome. Oh, that's looking good. That's looking real good. You always get nervous at the last minute about how things are going to turn out, but this one seems to be turning out just fine. I've got just enough lip here that the dome will sit over top of it and hold itself in place. I don't know whether I'm even going to bother painting. Don't know whether I'm going to bother gluing that. I kind of like the idea of the dome coming off since it did in the show. Let's turn this around so you can get a better view. And clean that dome off. Get some of the plastic polish that I have and clean this off a bit. Decided not to try to do that silver chrome piece of trim here. I don't think I'd be able to glue it to it cleanly. I have to get a piece of wire and get it bent first, and then I think we're going to be happy just like that. There's some details here that need to be painted, and these bolts that stick out from the tail piece, those need to be painted silver, and we'll be darn close to finishing this. So these buttons and those are the last bits that need to be painted. We're down to it. We're running out of things to do. Next thing to do is to put the interior in. I've got the detail painting on the outside done. Anything that remains to be done on these inside walls I can do once the interior is in. So as I said, there's no more excuses. I need to put a little bit of epoxy. I guess the best thing to do would be to put some on the bottom of the hull here and get ready to position that inside and let the epoxy cure up around it. Boy, I wish I had those hypodermic, or those you know, the old epoxy where you could use the syringe, because I really would like to get in there with a syringe to put it in place. Hate that I can't do that. And then after that, we sink the floor in, and then we put the chair in the center of the floor, and we work our way out. We're almost done. Okay, the walls, floor, and chair are now glued in, or epoxied in. I put some epoxy in the center, kind of sunk everything into it. This should be left alone for a little bit, but I can set the dome on it, since I don't think I'm ever going to glue that dome down. And I think we are 95% of the way there. We're going to let that dry for, it's 1 minute epoxy, but we're going to let it go for at least 20. And then we'll come back to it and do the final touching up here and set it on the base, and it will be done. And here is the finished Lazarus ship. It's one of those rare things I got done early enough on Friday to set up the material, set up the space cloth. I almost wish I had some sort of big diorama, big big backdrop of Vasquez rocks to go behind it, because that would really set it off nicely, I think. But go ahead and pick it up. I don't have a turntable out here right now, so I will just do this manually. And now you can see into the inside there. But this little door here is removable, and there is a dilithium crystal behind there, sold separately. But it will, of course the dome is not glued on, so if you want to take a look inside you can see that a little bit more detail. But there you go. One Lazarus interdimensional ship, one-man jumping ship. And that'll do it. Just like I said, one of those rare instances where I got done right on time. I wasn't scrambling to the last second to get it finished, but yet I also wasn't twiddling my thumbs waiting all day because I had finished it on a Thursday or something. So also got great news. This is Kim from Larson Designs. Chris Larson does some fantastic work. And it's nice because something like this doesn't get, this is a ship that doesn't get the love that it ought to. I mean, this would be a simple kit for round 2 to come out with. But I don't know that the demand for it would be worth their time. But it's a simple kit. It's a simple, simple shapes that would go together real nicely. They could put it in scale with their Galileo shuttlecraft and have quite the nice time, I think. But like I said, Larson Design, got an email from Chris today saying my next ship from them, which I ordered both of them at the same time, but he went ahead and sent this one, has been posted. It's I got a tracking number, so if that shows up by beginning of next week, that'll be the next week's build, and I think you'll like it. It's a return to a big ship, and we're going to see how easy it's going to be to light. So we're getting back into it. I took a divergent path for a few weeks and did some wheeled vehicles, but now I'm back in familiar waters, dipping my toe back into the galactic spaceship building business, and business is good. So until next week, when we will discover together what that subject is going to be, y'all be good to each other, be safe, be smart. Be at Wonderfest if you can. It's coming up in another month. I would love to see all of you there. Stop by, say howdy. I'll be happy to wave back at you. So be good. We'll see you here next time. And that's it for now.